You are listening to the sounds of the Right On Network.
Hello, welcome to the first official episode of 30 Minutes to Get Back. My name is Chris, and I'm here with AJ, and we're going to discuss the first 30 minutes of the Peter Jackson documentary, Get Back. How you doing tonight, AJ?
I'm doing well, Chris. I'm really excited to talk about some Beatles with you and the listening audience because I went through this one time, this special Get Back, and I had a lot of fun with it. And revisiting the first 30 minutes, it went by too fast. I'm still having fun with them messing around in the recording studio, and I just think it's hilarious and just daunting. Like, I'm sitting there scared for them. Like, why did you guys agree to do this?
Yeah. Looking at their timeline, where you realize they want to do all of this in 3 weeks, is crazy to me. But it's something I didn't pick up on, I think, the first time around.
Yeah, I thought about that a lot because the whole time when I was watching it, I thought they should play this for like high school English classes where they're talking about writing and you're seeing these people procrastinating, but then you're seeing peer editing, collaboration, pre-writing, and publishing post-production. This is the perfect little vehicle about just a creative writing process. So I was always thinking about that countdown and they're up against it. But I also love the fact of, it was a great idea when we were writing stuff down on a cocktail napkin because they were living off that high of, oh man, wasn't that Hey Jude special? Wasn't that pretty fun? Yeah, we should do something. And it was it was a good idea at the time.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. They were definitely running off of those endorphins from that recording session that they did live. So so we watched the first 30 minutes. We went a little long, I think, because we wanted to kind of button it. So we kind of did all of day one and a little bit of day two. There's probably a little bit more day two after that. How did you feel about how much we were able to get in those first 30 minutes?
I thought it was great, again, like what the camera was catching and the brilliance of the editing, maybe the first time around, definitely what Peter Jackson and his team did as far as, this is just moving smoothly. Like, I've watched behind the scenes stuff, added value material on behind the scenes of TV shows, but this is way more than that. I just can't believe how fast this moves and how coherent it is.
Yeah.
Not saying that it feels scripted, but I can't believe they're catching this.
And it doesn't drag. We're big fans of the Beatles, so it doesn't drag for us. Maybe if you don't love the Beatles and you're watching it, I think what was the term you used? It can be like watching paint dry, but
watching paint dry.
But I found it fascinating.
Yeah, I think if you're a super fan, you might like it. I think if maybe you just think documentaries are interesting, or it could be someone where, like, I don't know anything about the Beatles, but I like watching someone put a project together, or you might come from the angle of, hey, I'm watching this as a historical document.
Right.
So some of the things where it's like, oh, what they're trying to do, that could be easily done today, but they actually have to build this or they got to be analog about it. So it's kind of interesting seeing them put this together. Something that I didn't think it was funny, I just thought it was interesting, where it's like, okay, we're going to have this idea and we're going to record in the studio, but we have a limited amount of time because someone needs this space after us. And we got to get this done because Ringo's going to be in this movie.
Right. This is the only time I really hear about this movie.
Yeah, The Magic Christian.
Yes.
I'm going to try to check it out on YouTube. I need to watch this, but I think Peter Sellers.
I forgot, sometimes listening to the music, I forget that they all tried to do acting as well in the 60s. So that's a really interesting little detail in there to kind of let you know where they're at in their level of fame at this moment too.
Because before this, John, he was in that How I Won the War. It's kind of interesting because they're doing some things like, okay, now artists, when they come out, they're coming out of the box Like, I can do anything. Hey, I can host a show if you want me to. I can act in a movie. That was pretty rare back then. And the fact that they're doing this, we're going to start this production company called Apple. We're trying to star in these movies. They were already trying to do the multi-talented thing back then. And then, I mean, let's face it, folks, we're getting a reality show.
Yeah, that's a great point. It is a reality show, and you're getting you get all the drama and the swings of emotions that a reality show can give you.
I think one thing that we found interesting was you have the director, Michael Lindsay Hogg, who worked with them on the Hey Jude live footage, and he worked with them on some other videos. But from the vantage point of what we saw here, it seemed like only Paul McCartney was talking to him. It was almost like the other band members were like, let us just be artists. And Paul, if you want to act as also a business manager, you talk to them. But it seemed like the other ones weren't really talking to the production.
Yeah, you got the impression that this event is really Paul's baby. And the others are along for the ride, but it just feels like Paul is trying to steer this train to go in the direction of making the album, the TV special, and then having the concert.
You have Ringo; he's ready to be a star in the motion pictures, and George, he's coming back from America where he's co-writing with Bob Dylan and the American band. What would they call it? America? Yeah, and so he's like, I got my own bones. I've made a name for myself, and now I have to come here in the winter in this barn place and play the little brother role again. I've outgrown it. So you can see that
which we talked about, and you can definitely see it here because he's ready to explode creatively, and he's still kind of in a box when he's with the Beatles.
Yeah. I love the cinematography on here, like just the backgrounds when they start coloring it in. I was just like, wow, this is pretty neat. So the goal was we're going to film you guys here because remember, they're steady saying, hey, are they filming this?
Yeah.
So it was going to be, we're going to do a live performance, maybe 5 songs. But before that live performance, you will see some footage of us rehearsing the songs and putting it together. And that's kind of interesting because that's what Seinfeld and Larry David were going to do when they're like, okay, Seinfeld, hey, what do you want to do? Well, hey, why don't you record us just kind of messing around, mucking about, which was going to be kind of a reality show. And he said, and then this is how the audience could see, this is how comedians get material. You'll see Larry and I just walking around, making fun of people in a convenience store, making observations out in the street. And then boom, it'll end up on stage in our material. And that's what Seinfeld was supposed to be. Just record us, kind of doing a reality show, whatever. And then I'll do my stand-up special. And then somehow turn into a TV show. But that's what the plan was here.
Yeah, it was. I don't know if in their minds they were thinking we're going to show the creative process, or if they were just like, we're ready to get back out there and have faces and in the public and have a connection with the audience, performing that we haven't been doing in a while. That we've just been recording and releasing singles, filming little videos, or Hey Jude, and then now they're like they want to themselves out there again. So I don't know what the impetus was to do this, but that's what you're getting. You're getting that creative process.
How effective do you think the kind of montage of their career leading up to this point was for an audience where it's like, I'm not chapter and verse about the Beatles, or I don't know that much about the Beatles, but for some reason I'm watching this on Disney Plus. Do you think it was enough to get the audience up to speed?
I think it was, and I thought it was really smart to do that because it really did give you a good idea of where they started and where they were before the recording, right? You get that little montage, and it gives you the quick history lesson of the band. and you get all this early footage. And for me, it kind of got a little pumped up. It was almost like a hype video. They're playing different
Yep.
songs. You're hearing snippets of the hits, and you know, you're hearing "Help." You're hearing "I Should Have Known Better." They're showing you, their psychedelic phase, and I'm just like, I'm ready. I'm ready for some Beatles. Like, yeah, let me in.
I think it also showed you like it was like a full blown arc of their career and how they started off really, really
Oh,
young. And even at the end of their career, they're really, really young, but they've grown older. And it also showed that like how they were in danger a lot.
yeah, yeah. I was blown away by how young they were. Like, it, but then when you see those pictures and you hear that they were 14 and 15 when they started getting together, it's like they were ready to be in a band right out of the womb. Like, they popped out with those
Yeah.
those guitars. Paul popped out playing bass left-handed. It was just crazy to see how young they were. And like you said, and then you're following them, and when they're dealing with all the little bit of strife when they were in the Philippines, and when John had his "we're more popular than Jesus" moment, they were like 25, 26. They're not old. They're still basically kids. I mean, I'm older now. I look at people in their 20s and I think, you're a kid, and I probably shouldn't, but that's how my brain works. I'm like, you're still young.
And you're having them make, and they're messing around. They said the reason why we stopped touring is we would do world tours and we would pop up somewhere and there's a revolution going on. We go over here and there's riots happening. And I can't remember if it was the Philippines or which place it was where they said they wake up, they snub the royalty. They're like, we're not
Mhm.
going to go. They wake up, they put on a television, and it's a news report about them snubbing the royals and
Yeah.
not going. And they're like, oh my gosh. They're like, we got to get out the country. And people were trying to attack them. They're like, if we hide behind these nuns, it's a Catholic country, so maybe they want to attack the nuns. I mean, just
Yeah,
madness.
madness. And oh, go
So,
ahead.
and I was gonna say, and that's when they went, okay, we're not going to tour anymore. We'll send a video, and here you go, Paperback
Mhm.
Writer. Here you go, Rain. And basically, they're saying this is the music video. They're giving us the music
Yeah.
video genre.
And what's wild to me, what really stuck out to me was how, you feel like the time when they decide to stop touring and stop doing live performances to now is a long time. But it's not even 3 years. But they do so much in between those 3 years that it feels like a generation goes by without getting to see the Beatles, right? Because you think about it, they do Sergeant Pepper's, they do Magical Mystery Tour, they do the White Album. It just explodes for them creatively between when they stop doing live events and when they plan to do this Get Back performance.
So, and like you're saying, the distance between Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band and this footage here for Get Back, relatively speaking, is not that far apart, but it's far apart enough for them to be, and we got that psychedelic stuff out of our systems. When we do this, it's going to be stripped down and bluesy. And you know how that is, where it's like, well, okay, this person's 3 years younger than me. We're just 3 years apart, but our musical tastes totally different. Just because we slightly missed each other in a certain generation.
And
And that's what we're seeing
and I
here.
feel like, and I think they even mentioned this in the montage where they talk about all the innovation they made um, with the 4 tracks and being able to, lay down multiple instruments by themselves almost because they figured out how to do that. And that almost separates them because they no longer had to come in and, Ringo, I need you to hit the drums for me, or George, can you do this guitar part? But they can come in with it already pretty much mapped out. So it almost makes what they're doing now even more important because they're going to sit in the same room and write songs together, which I almost feel like during the White Album is not really what they did. Um,
Oh no, it's like it's 4 different. That's why I always say to myself that Rubber Soul was their last, like, and we're a band. We're in here together. But then, like you're saying here, but these Get Back sessions, this is the start of us. We got to look each other in the eye and pick out these songs.
Now, was there anything from the montage that really stuck out to you before we get into the first day?
Oh, and the whole thing with Mr. Brian
Mm,
Epstein, where once he passed, that was like okay, we have to manage ourselves. Where do we go from here? And that's where I think things starts to spiral. So once they do have the breakup, it was like, oh, they just broke up out of nowhere. And it's like, well, I think if we rewind the clocks, it's like that was probably the
mm.
start.
And every time I see a documentary or read a book about the Beatles, that is like the linchpin of what held them together was the manager. He kind of kept them in line and stopped them from traveling
Mm-hmm.
too far out of field. But once he was gone and they were kind of left to their own devices, they that's when the fractures started to appear, I guess, between the members. Which
Yeah.
I guess is why this is such an important project for them, because this is like getting back to basics.
Back to basics. Yeah, that was one of the taglines. Hey, no frills, no thrills, no studio tricks. Back to
Yeah.
basics.
And like we said, the whole plan was we're going to record an album together. We're going to show people the creative process, and we're going to put on a little concert. And we're going to do it in less than 3 weeks.
That is
Yeah.
insanity.
Even for them who like, I look at them and I'm thinking, they're these mythic characters that could just, you know, burp out a hit song in 12 seconds. And, everybody will love the song for the rest of their lives. And when you watch them, you kind of realize that these are just four guys in their 20s. They're getting close to 30 years old, and they're starting to, have relationships outside of the group, and they're just guys trying to make music. And you can see that in, like, when we get to day one and we start watching them working out some of the early songs for Let It Be, because I think that we hear Don't Let Me Down, Two of Us, and I've Got a Feeling, which almost sounded a little like a gospel song to me in the beginning.
Yes.
But you could see them. It was crazy to see how in sync they were, discussing like the timing changes and what chord to hit, and the way that like Ringo just picked it up, and you could almost hear the songs before they even had the idea of the song out in front of everybody. They were already kind of building on it.
That's an interesting exercise as well. Maybe for someone I'm not too familiar with the Beatles, but for some reason I'm watching this project where we already know the
Mm.
answers. And we're watching them like, oh, that's going to be Get Back. Like, I know exactly how that's going to go, but we're watching them figure out how is this going to go. And then, you know, three of them, they've known each other since they were teenagers. So I can just motion to you or kind of go da 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 da, and then you'll know what I'm talking about. So they have so many shorthands. And I think that's one of the real reasons why they feel like, I think we can do this in 3 weeks because we know each other's ticks and we can work
It's almost
fast.
like they're athletes. It's like they're Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. Like they can read each other's body language. They know the next move the guy's going to make, and the way they work together is just, it's almost flawless. Even though it's a
Yeah.
rough idea. I mean, one of the things that I found interesting is when they're doing the songs, they're kind of just mumbling the words and they're making things up. Um, Even to the point where I feel like when they were trying to figure out chord changes and they were singing "I Got a Feeling," they just start making like dick jokes, like they're
Yes.
teenagers, and they're all making each other laugh because they don't know what the next line is. So they're just figuring out the musical changes and how it's going to sound when they sing it, but not exactly what they sung. But by the end of that first day, they kind of had the idea, like John's part, and I've Got a Feeling. He kind of had all that worked out by the end of it.
I think it's so awesome. One of the reasons why I like the Beatles is it's four members and it's about all of them. And they're all coming from these different angles. They're like different
Mm.
avatars. So, and you can pick your favorite, but when they come together, it's Voltron. And I
Yeah.
love it.
A couple of the other songs that they did were some covers, right? So you could really see like, almost like that's a warm up because they all love Chuck Berry and they all love Bob Dylan. So they're doing like Johnny Be Good, and they did the Mighty Quinn, and they did I Shall Be Released, which was really interesting to me because sometimes I forget that they love music too. And they love the music that's
Yeah.
coming out, and they're not just in there writing songs, they're like enjoying music together.
Yeah, I think when you read a lot about the Beatles, they'll talk about, okay, so these were hits at that time, and then that influenced me to go this way. And I always love how, and I like this where it's like, okay, we got to warm ourselves up. So what are we going to do? We're going to revert back to things we liked as teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
Johnny Be Good, all that kind of stuff. And then that'll get my juices going. And now let's get back to, because the interesting thing here, guys, is this. These recording sessions, they're starting in the morning. And you're thinking like, okay, they're a rock band. Why are they starting in the morning? But the thing is, I think they're dealing with union production crew workers. And that has a strict time regiment. So it's like, I don't think those union workers are going to be like, yeah, I'll work with you till midnight. We're not allowed to do that. And that's why they're there so early.
Yeah, because it's not just them and the recording production team for the album. They got cameramen, they got sound guys, they got directors, they got people who are bringing food for everybody. That it's like a whole team. There's like 20, 30 people that they're working with in this thing.
Call sheet and everything. So, yeah, they can't mess around. And they recorded hundreds of hours of footage, and man, I just, the production for that, as far as the budget, because at the end of the day, at that time, nothing came of this.
Yeah. Yeah, it was years later when they actually kind of released something from this footage. Even the album didn't come out right away, right? Let It Be is kind of the last album that gets released, but Abbey Road's the last one that gets recorded, and Let It Be is really just Phil Spector like ripping through all of this to try to find a couple of songs.
Yeah, they were already out the door when Let It Be came out. They thought like, oh, we're gonna go off on this high note with Abbey Road, and then Let It Be, and they're like, well, whatever.
Which makes,
I know George, that John Lennon said they called us for our pants down, but we'll talk in the future about my defense of Let It Be album.
And it like you said too, it's almost like this is ends up being a failure, even though it really doesn't. But nothing, right? The album doesn't get recorded the way that they want it to, and they kind of move on. But we're getting ahead of ourselves, I guess.
Yeah, what else is on here? There's some other covers.
There's another song that John's singing that's called "Child of Nature," which I don't think gets past this kind of demo phase. But I could hear the way he's singing it, the way he's playing it, and that was "Jealous Guy," which gets released on Double Fantasy in 1980. He just changes the words. I think "Child of Nature," if I looked it up, and I feel like it's kind of more of a kind of hippie song. And then it just turns into this personal, vulnerable song about his own problems with his own jealousy with his women, and by that time he's dealing with Yoko. So that was really interesting to hear that he pocketed this song for 11 years until he got it out.
That's another thing that's going to be interesting on this journey. We're going to hear them pitch ideas, and you're like, oh my gosh, that's going to be Teddy Boy. That's going to be on the McCartney album. So they're pitching things that won't make either a cut of Let It Be or Abbey Road, and it'll be something in the future. And then, like you're saying, with Jealous Guy, I didn't even realize that's not until 1980.
Yeah, I mean, that's his last album because he took like a 5-year break.
Holy smoke. So just sitting on this stuff. Wow.
I'm pretty sure Jealous Guy came out in 1980. I could be wrong. So what did you call them? Appleheads? The
Apple
Scruffs.
Scruffs. Yeah, let us know.
If I'm wrong, I could be wrong, and maybe Jealous Guy is on the Imagine album, but I feel like it was on Double Fantasy. I could be wrong, and I know I could probably Google it right now, but I'm not gonna.
Yeah, and I'm not for sure on it because I know with a lot of John's solo work, I probably heard that stuff on Greatest Hits album, so I'm not for sure where it went, what went where. It's just that lets you know, like, and writers of any sort, they tell you that all the time. Like, okay, I wrote this stuff down, I didn't throw it away, I put it in a drawer, and then one day I revisited it and like, oh, okay, I can. So yeah, I like that they're not throwing things away. And like you said, they're recording demos and storing it. Then like, okay, I'm a different person now, but let me go back to this demo I made. Like, oh, what if instead of this psychedelic thing, it was Jealous Guy?
Which I did look up, and it was on Imagine. So it wasn't on Double Fantasy in 1980. It was on Imagine in 1971. So now I can't. We won't get yelled at.
Yeah. But yeah, please tell you what. Oh, one other thing too about that early footage, I'm always amazed that they have footage of the tavern days. And like it was multiple angles. I was like, again, like I'm so used to, and maybe I should stop saying this because these things are coming back, but I'm used to like that stuff was gone and it was gone. Like I never saw that again. But now we live in this time where things can be retrieved or it's going to be hard to really delete something. Although there is this Janine Garofalo 1 hour HBO special that she did in 1997. I cannot find that anywhere. So I'm just so used to things being like straight up bleached, wiped out the system. I am amazed that they have those tavern days because if anything, if that tavern footage would have, let's say the Beatles didn't make it, that tavern footage would be preserved to, talk about things that happened in Germany in the early 60s in Hamburg. But why else would you keep that footage? So unbelievable, just unbelievable.
When I was a kid, my uncle had bought me 2 bootleg tapes from the Hamburg days. I don't know where he got them, but I remember hearing those songs, and the tapes were so bad you could hardly make it out. And they resurfaced, I think, later on when they released the anthology series. But yeah, it's crazy that stuff still exists. Now, the last thing that I can remember from day one that really struck me was how uncomfortable it seemed George was when he realized how much they were recording. Like at one point they were talking and he kind of looked over. I can't remember who he was talking to, but he looked over their shoulder and he said, "Are you guys recording this conversation?" Yeah. And the demeanor just changed. Like, I just feel like he's really not down with any of this. I could be wrong, but that's just the initial feeling I get in this first, day of their recording Get Back is that he is just not thrilled about all these cameras.
Yeah, that was the vibe I got. And it's the 60s where, we're getting assassinations and all that stuff. So I can see them having a bit of paranoia. You got Elvis reporting them to the president, right, saying maybe they should be kicked out. So I can see the paranoia there. Also, I know, like, you feel like, man, okay, I know there's cameras there, so I'm going to always have my guard up. But I think when it's day 5, you're like, okay, I'm used to it. So we'll watch it, but I feel like as time goes on, they just loosey-goosey and being themselves anyway. I think they get used to it.
I think so, too. I think, too, in the beginning, you got to realize that this is, 1968? And it's not like today where you can do a reality show and you don't know where the cameras are and they can stick them anywhere. You got guys with hacks on, pushing the lens in your face. This isn't like a secret lipstick camera that nobody knows where it is. So to have all that equipment right in your face is probably also a little unnerving.
And we will tease this for a future episode, but I know they're going to do some stuff like hiding mics in flower pots.
Yeah, it definitely gets a little Tinker Tailor Tinker Tailor Silver Spy on them.
So tell the lovely listeners how they can get a hold of us, because we're doing 30 minutes to get back, 30 minutes each episode, how can they get a hold of us?
They can get a hold of us at 30getback@gmail.com. I'm just making sure that I have that address right. It should be 30getback@gmail.com, where they can write comments or ask questions or corrections, like the one we just did with Jealous Guy.
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll put a link to the website where you can find this episode, which you did, thank you very much, and previous episodes, when you can listen to episode 0, do a big run-up. And if you want to catch me on Blue Sky, I'm at Huestone, Huestone 44. And until next time, guys, get back where you belong.